Welcome, everyone. We are with the director and producer of Selfless. We have Kim Laureen, who directed the production, and we have Megan Dirksen, who was the producer. My name's Alistair Henry. I'm going to be the moderator this evening. If I can ask everyone to please mute their microphones. If you have any questions, and we're hoping you do because this is a Q&A, please private message them to Hallie. You will see that there is an option along the bottom of your screen that says chat. If you click that, you will get a chat window, and under the bottom where you type, you have a to option, and you can select. By default, it's set to everyone. I would ask that you would select Hallie Dow, send your questions to her, and she will put them in the queue, and hopefully we'll be able to get to everyone's questions this evening. This is a joint production between Fresh Independence Productions and Rotary Club of Yaletown. We are one of more than a dozen Rotary clubs in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. It's an international organization with over 1 million members worldwide. We are a community service-based organization with no religious or political affiliations. We are just trying to do good for the communities we live in and for the community of the planet that we all inhabit. So all the money that was raised is going to both ourselves, so we can help the local community, and to the producers of this film, so they can go on and make other independent productions like the one we're here to speak about this evening. So I'm going to start off by asking if Kim or Megan would like to make an opening introduction to the film that we've all just watched.
Well, I'll go first. And really, Meg and I, we're a mom-daughter team, so that we worked in the music field before. And when we were doing our work, we started looking around, and everywhere we went, heads are down, faces not engaged in one another. So Meg and I both said, okay, where are we leading the next generation with this type of behavior? And so we started talking about everything, how could we, impact this? And so we started researching statistics, and they're very grim with anxieties. The World Health Organization's deemed it an epidemic now, and university professors tell us they've never seen so much anxiety coming through their classroom doors. And you have to ask why, when we live in a time when everything's pretty darn good. So it doesn't reason that everyone's so anxious, and depression's up really high since we were kids, and there's physical ramifications, what's happening to the eyes. Meg will probably talk a little bit about that later. We reached out to some of the leading apps that young people are using, and Instagram, the big one with all the photos, they put up over 100 million posts every 24 hours. So we thought, oh, wow. So then we went to Snapchat, and we asked them, because that's the #1 way kids are communicating now. Mind you, TikTok's kind of moving in there and taking over, but Snapchat is the way kids are reaching out to one another. And they put up over 3.6 billion every 24 hours. So we started thinking, wow, those numbers are staggering. And that's a lot of time, over 1,200 hours a year spent on screens. And so we thought, what if we got kids away from all, away from all so much time spent on screens, and got them doing some positive things? They could actually really make a dent in some of the issues in the world. And the other thing that was really disheartening was those numbers are high, but what was even more concerning was the fact that 4 out of 10 of our teenage girls are uploading sexually explicit material to these places. And so that's not good. We know that's not good. And everything's being watered down, and boundaries are being pushed. And of course, flip it around, 98% of boys, young boys, are experiencing their sexual awakening there. So there's no natural blossoming and flowering. So we thought, okay, we're in a real pickle here. Things aren't looking good, because technology's not going away, nor should it. We're not against technology, but we want to ensure it works for us and not the other way around. So when Meg and I started talking, we said, we need to create a project which offers hope for people to navigate this new time we live in. And that's where we just went back to some of the bare essentials and things that connect us in life. And that's just really where we began. And that was really why we made the project. And yeah, so I don't know if you'd like to go from there.
Well, that's a great start to talk about the inspiration that was the genesis of this project. But in thinking about what you just said and how basically a cell phone is almost like a third arm for young people, how did you expect the film to be received by young people?
Well, it's interesting because when we created this film, we thought, it's, you know, every teenager out there is going to benefit from this. This is, you know, we're going to really, you know, reach out and touch them. And oddly enough, it's the parents, because they're all in this, that it's really resonating with. But kids, it does too. But the thing is nobody wants to give up that which they're addicted to. So there is, you know, there is some pushback on it a little bit. But if you talk with them one-on-one, or you get them in a group with a discussion, they'll start telling you how they're really feeling confused and different things. And so, yeah, and you know what? We're never telling anyone don't have a phone or no technology. It's, you know, all our hope from the beginning has been to get people to become more present in the moment, look up, let's start talking and reconnecting. Let's push our phone to the side for this conversation and engage one another. And that's really where we're at with it. And when people understand that we're not anti-technology, they're more apt to listen and go from there.
Yeah.
Have you heard from any young people who've seen the film, and what has their response been?
What do you think?
One little guy I loved, he said he loved watching The Family Who Lives Off the Grid, the Warburtons. He said he felt peaceful while he was watching that. Another girl said that she's been arguing with her mom lately to get Instagram, and her mom was saying no. And then they heard about, we had a local screening in our town, and they came out to it. And afterwards she says, "Mom, I don't want Instagram anymore." So I thought that was a real positive. A lot of teachers have said they can hear a pin drop while it's playing, because I think what I loved making it was a challenge, trying to go back into maybe our own sort of adolescence and film something or capture something that kids would be drawn to. So it was difficult to go back to that, and I was glad in that way that I think the kids really like watching somebody that represents them on screen and someone that they can relate to.
And I think, again, the kids that are feeling that things are a bit out of control, it gives them a voice to be able to speak forward what they're feeling, because most people don't want to say anything. They don't want to rock the boat, but I think some appreciate that they, you know, they can kind of belong in that and not be looked down upon.
So you mentioned the Warburton family, and the film opens with them. How did you meet them if they live off grid?
Well, I'll let Meg say that, because she's the one that became quite enamored with Kooky.
Yeah, I learned that was a real once in a lifetime experience, getting to go off the grid, and it had its stressful moments trying to film and all those sort of things. But as we go back and reflect upon it now, I realize how special and how fortunate we were to be able to do that. And number one, that the Warburton family even let us into their home, because they said they've been approached by BBC for different documentaries and stuff on them, but they just felt a connection to us. And that connection, I feel like, is the key word, because we had a music blog and we get tons of music submissions. And one day I randomly just clicked on it, was from Kooky and the Bard, and I saw that they were playing, her and her brother were playing at Glastonbury. And I thought, how is, I think at the time, like a 12 and 14-year-old playing at Glastonbury? And so I clicked on their music to listen to it, and that's where I heard their song Dalai Lama that they sing in the recording studio. And I just felt so uplifted and happy. And anytime I would feel maybe a bit down or whatnot, I'd always go back to that song Dalai Lama. And so we did an interview with them, and then fast forward to how it's interesting how everything in life weaves together, because when we we're on a walk and we started thinking about, we always say, what if a girl lived in the forest? She had no outside influences of mirrors, magazines, social media. That's always been our pitch. Like, who would you be if you didn't have that? And you're just you in the forest. And all of a sudden one day we thought, that's kooky. And we connected with them, and they said yes. They said, come and visit us and spend some time with us. And it really took off from there.
They've had big companies like BBC and whatnot, offer them money and everything to do documentaries. And they told us, they always said no. And we said, well, why us? And they just said there was a connection, something felt right. And so we always think it was meant to be. And they live off the grid. And, we live in a small town here, and yet we found each other in this big world. And yeah.
And it was just so incredible too, going into what they call the bender, made of hazel sticks, how they're pliable, and they throw a bunch of blankets and duvets on top. And the best I can always say is it's exactly like the Hobbit house. And it was such a magical essence going into there. And they are very connected to the earth, and their family taught us a lot during that time.
I wanted to add one more thing, because I know you have more questions, is one thing that we really liked about the Warburtons when we got to know them, sort of being in their home, is that they look to one another for connections. They have technology. You see in the film how they have the little Wi-Fi box they turn off and on, but they really value one another. And I think that we're really too often falling away from that, and so they look to one another for connection, and that's a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah.
So how off-grid are they living? Because both the kids referenced friends. One plays Xbox like 8 hours a day. They clearly had some signs of wealth because they had a recording studio and some equipment. So do the kids not go to school? Do the parents have traditional jobs?
Miranda, their mom, is a photographer, and our film poster, she took this beautiful photograph of Kooky. So, she goes into town and she'll work here and there doing photography. Simeon, the father, he was a recording artist years ago, and so he's led a very colorful life. But they do live in permaculture, community up there. They're quite off-grid, but they live a very different life than us, because the kids have a little scooter they will ride into town, and friends will come up and visit. But they don't go to school. They did try it when they were little, but it didn't work out. They've lived in India. They're very connected there, and they really learn in a different way than our children do. But they are not wealthy. They really live off their land. The little bit of money that Miranda makes with photographs and whatnot, they live very humbly, very simply. Their recording studio's made from all recycled materials, and it looks beautiful in the film, but it's very, very humble. And to say thank you for the beautiful music they provided with the film, we had a little bit of money left over at the end of our trip, and we offered them that so that they could purchase a microphone for their studio, because they've been using one that was lent to them. So they're they've never asked for a thing from us. Money is not important to them. They live a very, very different lifestyle.
And that's actually a really good reminder when we went and saw them, because we had our premiere over there, and you can just see that they're so far from money, and that was really refreshing and brought a lot of perspective in our own life, how it's not about that.
Yeah.
How long did you spend with them? How long was the filming and production of their segment?
We went back there two times.
Yeah, 2 times.
Yeah, so we went with this vision of, like, again, we didn't want to make the film that we were pointing fingers or making anyone feel bad. We really felt inside that we wanted to connect to something deeper, get people to reconnect themselves to something deeper, something more earthy in life than just being, you know, caught up in our screens. So when we connected with the Warburtons, we flew over there. We didn't have funding for the project. We couldn't get it. So we cashed in air miles, and that's how we got there. And when we got there, we didn't have a cinematographer yet to work in the UK because, you know, everybody wanted so much money, and we had a little bit in our pocket. We used air miles to get there. We had some cash in our pocket, and Meg put out on one of the websites for a cinematographer, and Nick Hamer, who is amazing, he answered it. And he, you know, we told him how much we had, and he said, well, that's not much, but he said, it'll buy my groceries this month. So he said, I'm in. So the reason I bring up Nick is without Nick, we never would have found them because they are very remote. And so Nick brought his car down from Leicester, yeah, where he lives. And so he got us there. And so we spent about a week with them the first time. And then we went back home after that, and we did all the stuff in between, and then we were like, okay, we need to wrap it up with them. And then we went back again for a week to 10 days we were there. And yeah, it was really great. And we're still in contact with them, and we've been back again when we had the premiere. So, and we may do a little bit more with them too, as we have a sequel coming.
But I was going to say, from the filmmaking perspective, it's really difficult to build that relationship in such a short amount of time. So that was a big challenge, but also we were so thankful for Nick in that situation, because like the English culture, they have their own kind of humor and all that too, and he really helped meld that barrier. So yeah, it was fun.
They would call tea time, and Nick would say, I'll have, farmers builders tea, and then a lot was bonded over cups of tea, and that even made it into the film where we had cups of tea. So yeah.
There are a number of different people who I will call characters who show up in the film, but at the same time, you're trying to create a certain narrative in making this film. Were there any people who were filmed who didn't make the cut?
Oh yes, we have a lot of, there was so much, so many great people out there and footage. We went into Staten Island in New York. We filmed with the PS22 choir and this amazing teacher there. We had a school in California that they make robotic hands.
Yeah, they make the they make prosthetic hands from 3D printers, and they make it for people around the world who can't afford a prosthetic hand. So we wanted to show a positive use of technology and how these kids are giving back. So yeah, we had so many hours, because we ended up, our first cut was a 4.5-hour film on the editing board, and we're like, we can't do that. So one day it's called Killing Your Darlings, where you just splice all the footage out, and yeah, it was crazy, and we got it down to an 1.5 hours in one setting. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and that's how we know that there's room to keep going with this, because there's so many arms and legs that extend off it. And and even we do a lot of workshops in that now. So with the PS22 choir and their footage, we're even incorporating some of that into our workshops, because there's so much. There's so much good stuff that we would have loved to put in, but we had to. Structuring the story is probably one of the hardest parts, and yeah, we had to do that.
But I was going to say too, probably that's actually a really interesting question too, because when we film with Josh, who's visually impaired, and they have the marimbas with their school program, the boy that we went to film with originally, we knew nothing about Josh and the marimbas. And this boy, his name was Sebastian. He's from North Vancouver Brockton School. He's part of Backpack Buddies, where they fill backpacks for kids who don't have food on the weekends, and it goes home with them. And it's a really amazing initiative, and he's a really sweet guy, but he had different things going on in his life, and he was quite shy as well. And so things just didn't really work out for timing. But we talked to the principal, and she said, before you leave here, you have to see the World Music Program. And we got introduced to them. So that was, how one thing leads to another. And if we hadn't talked to Sebastian, we would never have found Josh.
Yeah.
So how much of the film was scripted versus people just speaking their own truths?
I know because there's some narrative that it can come across as quite scripted, but it wasn't. What we did was we got each young person that everyone that we worked with provided a biography for us of, their feelings, their lives. And so we really just worked off of those, and we had the kids record what they were saying, and feeling that was pertinent to their storyline. So again, we just really, we kept filming, and we brought the structure of the story together in the editing room. So yeah, it really, that is what came from the kids, isn't it?
Yeah.
And and you can probably see the difference between the American classroom versus the Canadian one here. The kids are a little more guarded, polite, if that's the word you want to use, and the other one, they kind of just let it roll. And so I think it's just really culturally, the way we are too, and our communities and whatnot. So yeah.
And am I right to think that there's a book series that ties in with the film?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because parents are really concerned, and they want that support, and same with teachers, and we're finding that kids are getting cell phones as young as 7 years old. Pornography is even a problem in some 9-year-olds, if you can imagine. And so we know it's real, and it's it's pushing back on the kids younger and younger. So we really wanted to start the conversation at a younger age where parents can start talking about some of the messages in the film. So yeah, we have a storybook series. It's to be published in August, and it's 5 books. We're working with an illustrator in Portugal, Catarina Nito, and they're beautiful books, and they cover each of the messages that are offered in the film. And then we also have a parent book, because when we do workshops, etc., parents are always looking for more, and that's about raising kids in the social media age. And so really everything that's in our workshops is reinforced there, so they can take it home and refer.
And with the parent book, there were so many things that the professionals had to say that we had to leave out, because we didn't want to have too much talking, being mindful of the teens and stuff watching it. So yeah, there's so much that your eyes can still be opened up to.
Because the professionals we have in the film, they're really experts in what they do, and they just did have so much to offer. I mean, it's excellent for the workshops, or when we go to conferences, we're really able to focus on more of those things.
Yeah.
So with a film, with books, you mentioned a workshop. I mean, it almost sounds like a curriculum. Have you approached schools to see if there's a way in with these messages?
Yeah, we're in the process of that now. We've had a number of screenings and parent nights and that at schools. We've done some educational conferences, and the messages are always really well received. So we're working right now to have everything, the books, everything done, so when September starts, we'll be able to offer all of this to the schools, and whether that will be us knocking on doors or through a distributor that we are in discussions with now. So we'll see.
Yeah, because we thought filming felt like the hardest part, editing felt like the hardest part, and now distributing feels like an even harder part. So
it's tough.
Yeah, and we never ever would have imagined that it would be growing into doing books and all the discussion guides and all that stuff, but so thankful for how each avenue and corner that we can get in there and talk about it too, because we need to talk about it.
Well, the project just keeps growing. Wherever you go, different people, different community settings have different issues around everything, and it's just grown so multi-layered. It's a very inspirational backstory how we were even able to do this, 2 simple, humble girls, and it really is, I hope, inspirational for others to realize that dreams are made possible, that you have an important story within you and it's waiting to be shared with the world. So if Meg and I can do this, anybody can do it. And then the messages offered within are really beautiful, and they touch people in different ways. And then we have Raise the Bar, that we really encourage people to, speak forward. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's someone on their phone or, whatever, just speak forward. If it's in your job, just speak your mind. And, we don't have to just go with the flow. We can work for the kind of world that we want it to be, our relationships, everything.
Was this your first film?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It does not show like a first film. The production quality was very high.
Well, it's interesting. That was a journey in and of itself. And that's one reason we're excited when we do get started on the next one, because we've learned so much along the way. It was about an 18-month process to film and get it edited. Part of that was because, you know, financially we did it as we could. But we were literally unsure of everything. And that's where we were connected with people like Nick Hamer in the UK. He taught us so many things, even about direction, everything. And so, yeah, it was amazing. But we had to use different cinematographers wherever we went on location, because that's the kind of budget we had. So that posed a lot of problems in the editing room, different cameras. And so anyways, when we got all this footage onto the editing board, we were like, oh my gosh, there's this mistake, that mistake, the next one. So we really came to realize that Selfless is a film imperfectly perfect, much like life itself. We shouldn't be putting a filter on our lives. And so it works. It all came together. And what we want people to know, especially young people, is even mistakes are an important part of your story. So if we gave up, we would never have this film. So we believe the mistakes are what make it whole. And we're proud that we were able to do this. And we know that we'll do better next time. But yeah, imperfectly perfect works right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, that shocks me. I would have thought that maybe this was your second or third film, but you guys did a great job. What advice would you offer to somebody who has a dream, an idea, inspiration, and doesn't even know where to start, but has a film inside of them that they need to get out?
Well, I think, you know, number one is, you know, if it's something that you feel strongly about, for Meg and I, we both really, you know, felt that this was a story placed on our hearts to find wings to fly. And, you know, we really kind of, you know, fluttered around. We weren't quite sure what to do in the beginning. But I think if you're really serious, you first have to believe in what you're doing. And that's what we learned. We first had to have faith in that story that was placed in us, that, you know, like this is real and this is valid, and I can see a need for it in our community. And then we had to have courage to see it through. And there's a lot of people who talk about doing things. And I think that was probably why it was hard for us to get any funding, because, you know, it's a very relevant topic, but we're two people who have never done this before. So most people think you're not going to finish it. We didn't even know if we would. But I think, you know, having faith and courage, and there's a lot of great groups out there, documentary groups, and, you know, connect with your community of filmmakers, because it can be a very lonely road. And I just really had to, for myself personally, go to that quiet spot within me and, you know, just really be still and think about what I was trying to do here. And, you know, I really had to have faith in that and just push through. It's very doable. We've had no funding. And what I always say too is I believe the power of the human spirit can do amazing things. And it really has helped us to get Selfless across the finish line. With distribution, it's been a long, lonely road, but we're going through communities into the hearts of people. And you can do it. I always go by, he's hanging in our office here, the late Terry Fox, dreams are made possible if you try, but you have to try. And that goes with me wherever I go. Yeah, Meg too. She's dragged along with me. But
no, this is my mom too, so I'm really, really proud of her. And I've learned a lot throughout the process that I'll always carry with me. And I always like what my aunt said, there's always room for everyone. And I always think people think, oh no, I couldn't do that, or I wouldn't be able to do this or that, but there's always space for everyone.
Yeah. And be true to that story within you. Don't think that you have to go the path that everyone's going or what's trendy. People need good stories. That's what they're searching for. And that's what they're thirsty for. Is there's so much sensationalism out there. You know, maybe that's some cup of tea for, you know, some people, but I think the majority of us, we're over that. We want something that we can engage and lock into. So trust in that story that's within you, because it won't let you down.
Yeah.
And actually that does also gel with the message of the of the film, which is, you know, to trust in yourself and be different. Don't go with the flow.
Yeah.
So back to the film Selfless. We have talked about the film. We've touched on the books. You mentioned some workshops. What will they encompass that isn't covered, or how will it be different from the film and the books?
Well, so far the workshops we've been doing have, again, we kind of find out the needs of that particular community. We've done the loneliness in the social media age. Sometimes we're speaking to parents. So we're really just covering that kind of information. When we spoke for Youth for Canada, we really challenged them on rethinking their wired world. What is it that we're hardwired to every day? So really we're building those as we go. And so that's really where we're at with that. But again, it's becoming so multi-layered that the conversations can go any direction. You know, it's really about grounding ourselves. And so, yeah, that they're a work in progress, and we create them for whoever requests them.
And you mentioned there's a sequel in the works? Yeah,
what our goal and our hope is right now is, we were very touched by Josh's statement in the film, "For me, beauty's felt, not seen." And so we have on the storyboard a film called Beautiful, F-U-L-L, and it will flow quite effortlessly from Selfless, and it really will be about that. That's going to be our task, is helping people to feel that, because that's what I think people engage with Selfless is, it takes them on an emotional journey they might not have expected to go on. And that's what Beautiful will do too. And it's so cliche that beauty starts from the inside out, but it's really a concern when you look at the filtering that's going on, the way women and perhaps men too are injecting their faces, altering their bodies, all in search of beauty. So we're always reaching for youth or for happiness, but we always seem to be falling short. Anxiety and depression tells us that now. So we really would like to continue that journey of looking and connecting with something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And with the momentum you've now created through Selfless, is the goal or hope that you'll be able to use that as some sort of leverage or sign of faith to be able to get funding for this next project?
Yeah, we hope, as we button things down with, you know, all the extensions of Selfless, that people will have a viable tangent platform that they can see that, you know, has come forth, and they'll see that we will back up what we're doing. So I'm hoping that will make it easier. We're always in hope of an angel investor, you know, someone that feels passionate about this and would have faith in our ability to be able to honor the messages there. So, yeah.
I think it's probably safe to say there are very few people who will argue with the general message that an over-reliance or an overuse of technology is not healthy. But recognizing the current climate of where we are right now, and I mean, the fact that we are doing this over technology, we are now relying on technology as a lifeline like we've never had to before. We've chosen to, we've never had to. How does that tie in with the general message of Selfless?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've thought about it a lot lately myself, because with where we're at, and we've been doing even a virtual conference, you know, an educational conference, and it's like, yeah, how do we argue this point? But I guess really it's just the whole thing of, we don't want to be slaves to technology. It's an amazing tool. And I think where we've really gone in a lot of our educational conferences is, we'd like people to know that it's important to be able to do things ourselves first. So I often talk with teachers and, counselors and whatnot, is, let's ensure that our kids have all the strong foundation, and then let's incorporate technology once they have that. Meg and I, when we were in Washington, D.C., we went through the Smithsonian Museum of History, and it struck me when I was looking around. On the walls were handwritten letters from past presidents, and they were beautiful and such amazing messages there. And it really washed over me that if not already, very soon, our children will not be able to read or write these letters themselves. And I find that concerning because it's an art. It's something coming from the inside out, and I can do it myself first. So I want my kids to be able to read, write, spell, write a letter, address it, put a stamp on it, and put it in the mailbox. And you know what? We've grown far past that, but at least they know how to do it. They can communicate themselves first. And then technology's great, and we'll have to work hard with that to keep up with the rest of the world. But yeah, so that's really, we're not, again, not anti-technology. It's great to see how it's keeping us connected now. But again, we can never lose sight of you know, that tangible ability to be able to do it ourselves first. And many of our kids won't be able to. So that bothers me.
And I think it comes down to one word, and I think balance comes to mind. Like in my own life between work and personal and all those things, it's like I just really, and like with the nice weather and stuff, have enjoyed, we both have going on hikes and taking that time to soak in the sun. And if you have that chance, decide how we say, what are you reaching for? Are you going to reach for your phone in that moment, or are you going to reach for a book and what's going to maybe fill you up more at the end of it?
Yeah.
So within your immediate or extended family, there's probably children under the age of 20. How has making this film affected how you parent or interact with these relatives who are parenting those people now that we're in this social media obsessed age?
Well, there's a couple of angles I have for that question. Making this film was even tough on my family, because in order to make this film, I was on technology a lot, especially in the editing process. My head was down and I was not engaged in everything going on here. And Meg and I both were battered to the walls doing it. We had red faces, we were exhausted, we were unruly because that blue light and everything, it just had us, you know, up against the wall. And so when I reflect upon it now, those are stolen moments that I lost in my own family setting. But I'm hoping with that reflection upon all that, you know, I make sure in my life going forward that I keep that balance that Meg spoke about. And so I think it's really important. But when you say about parenting, we have a large family. So my oldest is just about 40, and the youngest, she's just turning 20. So I've parented over the generations, and I've experienced a lot of different things. And I always say our oldest child, when he was a teenager, we worried when he went out, what would it be like? Would he try smoking, drinking, you know, those kind of things that you got worked up about. Well, now with the youngest one, and you have to worry about your child home alone in their room on their screen. They could potentially be in more danger under the safe roof of your home. So parenting, it's really important in workshops. A lot of parents, we know stuff is going on, but we don't really understand what's going on. When you hear in the film about sending nudes and pictures and different things, this is real, and this is our kids. You know, it's happening. Everything's getting so watered down, and so we really need to protect them. And I always say that's another thing with technology. We don't give kids their license and the keys at 16 and say, hey, go have a good time. It's a tool, it's a weapon. It potentially can kill people. So it's the same with the internet, or it's a tool. We need to teach them to use it responsibly. And so, yeah, there's a lot of challenges for parenting today. And I don't envy them coming up, because this is a really big thing they're up against. I see the internet at times like a snake, silently slithering through, claiming souls one click at a time. And nobody's a bad person. Nobody's specifically looking for something, but it has the potential to take us down a dark hole if we don't, you know, be mindful and careful and all those things. So kids are up, and their innocence is gone that quick when they come across all they got to do is Google boobs and you know what's going to come up, you know? So, I mean, it's real. It's real. Parents need to understand it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about blue light?
I'll let Meg talk about that because she's a big fan of Dr. Randhawa.
I'm just always interested in the facts that I learned that I like to share with people. How she says it already a bit in the film, but we know what UV light does in the sun and how it affects the surface level of our skin. But blue light's actually going straight into the very back of the lens of our eye, and that's what's doing the most damage. So especially when she's talking about when we're on our screens at night, we have all that blue light and all that energy going straight into the back of our eye, and that's what she says can cause macular degeneration, which eventually can lead to blindness. And it doesn't seem real, but it's true that we're in the experiment and we don't fully know what the outcome's going to be. And especially she talks about, I think so many parents don't realize that when they're putting the iPads or their phones in front of the kids to keep them entertained or keep them quiet or whatnot, she said, what we don't realize is our lenses are so pure when we're born, and as we get older they start to mature and we get some resilience towards them while we're looking at these things. But when they're little, there's no protection on them whatsoever. So she said we wouldn't purposely cause our child harm, but we are when we're putting those iPads in front of them. So I thought that that's a very interesting point. And one last thing was with the myopia, it's what causes nearsightedness. And she said naturally, as humans, we're hunters and gatherers and we have distance vision. So now that we're all putting all these screens in front of us, it's actually making our muscles locked. So it's straining them and we're blinking less and we're getting dry eye. So what I'm always mindful of on the computer is she says, use the 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, look up, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds, and that gives your eyes that moment to relax. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it kind of scares me when I think about it. Or blue light, how we're, if you're staring at your screen for too long, you can get a headache and all those sort of things. So
well, and now dry eyes linked to depression. So as Dr. Randhawa says, what do we do when we're depressed? We'll often go back on our screen to self-soothe or look up something instead of putting it down and going outside and getting some fresh air. So it's a bit of a vicious circle for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really interesting what you said about the unprotected lens of a baby. I mean, you would be considered crazy if you put a baby out in the sun without sunscreen, but it sounds like you're essentially doing that with a screen, and you see that all the time.
Yeah, and she said that's only just coming into literature now. So I always think anything we do, I love to be able to tell the parents that, because if you don't know, I don't think most of us would want to do that. So I just always think that's something that I really have taken away from filming.
And as Meg said about the experiment going on now, when we presented in Germany at the ECER conference, it was a room filled with international academics, and we were a little like, oh, what? They have far more education than I have. But it was amazing how well it was received, but we did get a lot of studies and things thrown at us. And I said, well, that's all fine that they're saying that blue light isn't doing harm and different things. But I said, nobody knows that. Those studies don't mean anything, because right now, Gen Z is the first generation that's never known life without internet, social media pages, and the iPhone. So it's like the experiment's happening now, and we're going to find out in 10 to 20 years what is actually, I'll listen to your studies then, but now they're not relevant. The experiments now, our kids are a part of it, and we need to wake up and think about that.
Yeah. And Dr. Randhawa, she's the optometrist who speaks about the blue light. She said it's also really important not to be on your screen in the dark, because that's when the light's strongest, the frequency going directly into your eye. So always make sure you have a lamp or a light on if you're going to be on your phone in bed.
And how many kids are sneaking in their room with their phone under the covers or whatever, yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have either deliberately or unwittingly become subject matter experts on this specific topic. Do you find that you have people reaching out to you, either friends, family, or people you don't know, asking for advice?
I think people, we don't consider ourselves experts, but it's definitely a journey, and it's all
share
coming
what
together.
we've learned.
Yeah, what we've learned along the way. But I think people, what this film does is it opens conversation. It gets the conversation started, because we all think there's nothing we can do, or this is just the new normal. I think that's what I find the most, is that people, they start talking about it, and I think that maybe they ask us some questions, but it's more people want to just talk about what's going on and how it makes them feel, and what they're frustrated about. And yeah, for sure parents do, but even kids, you can get more to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
So,
and we're honest when we say we don't have all the answers, but that's exactly what my mom just said. We want to open up that conversation and all navigate it together. And it is scary for parents raising kids these days. That's the number one.
Yeah, and I was asked at a Q&A once, well, it all looks pretty simple, like let's get them outside and all that, but how do we do that? And so I was kind of standing there thinking, yeah, how do we do that? And then I really found the answer with that, is that it's a conscious choice we have to make every day. There is no quick fix to this. Number one, I think we're dealing with addiction, so we need to do something to get them to look up for a moment. Because we activate the heart with this story. So now they look up for a moment and they're like, hey, what's going on? Okay, now we can start talking. And then when we're in addiction, we don't have many choices because we're being ruled. But when we can look up and we can pull that addiction away a little bit, now we can make some healthy choices. So it's the same thing. Am I going to sit and play video games all day, or am I going to go for a run, or am I going to eat carrots or M&M cookies all day, or whatever? It's a conscious choice. There's nothing good comes easy in life. And that's, when we're aware and striving, that's what makes us stronger. So there's no easy fix. We need to reach out and connect with one another.
And what I was going to say is also been kind of interesting too, because we've both never had our own social media, like a personal account. So that's been really interesting, and definitely partly what drove us to have these conversations in the beginning. But we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for the film now. We've made a lot of connections on there that have been really great. But I was noticing even on the Instagram, like, oh, you're looking up like, different people, you can find yourself snooping and whatnot on there. And sometimes I'm like, why am I spending my time on here? Or maybe like my weekly screen reports going up and all that. And I took Instagram off my phone. And I wouldn't say I've ever been addicted to it, but like I said, I find myself looking at it more than picking up my book and reading. And I felt so free lately, not having that temptation there, which it's my choice if I'm going to click on it or not, but just not having it there, I don't miss it whatsoever.
And I think getting kids involved, that's what we love about Rotary, is, all the youth initiatives you have. Get kids involved in other things where they're reaching out and helping other people, because social media is just really a stalking, self-absorbed type of thing, unless you're promoting something positive. Otherwise, it's very narcissistic, how many likes, me, selfie, so let's get kids thinking about other things, and not being led down that path of,
and that's what I was going to say. I see we'll have to wrap up, but we're so thankful to Karen, how we met her at the mission screening where we're from, and she taught us. I've always heard of Rotary in the background and saw your guys' emblem and all that, but didn't really know what it was. And when we discovered about service above self, how my mom always says, it really aligned effortlessly. And we're just so thankful to you, Karen, for helping us and all your connections and your support.
And that's how it's been all along the way, is we always like to say things found us that were meant to, and we connected, from the Warburtons right down to Karen. She was a little angel that approached us when we were actually in a very frustrating time of trying to get the film out there. And when she approached us, it just seemed right. It was like, this is the direction we want to take kids. So this is perfect, So we're very blessed to have Karen in our lives.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful, and I think that's actually a great note to end this on. Do you have a final message you would like to impart for what you're hoping will come from this, or what you're hoping people will take away from the experience of watching Selfless?
Well, we hope if the film resonates with you, if the subject resonates with you, that you'll reach out and tell other people about it, your schools, mentors and leaders in your community, because that's what our hope is, that it will go through communities and touch people's lives. And they can find lots of information at selflessmovie.com. So we just really hope that each person, if they can tell another person, that we can prove that Selfless was made from something more than money, and distribution costs a lot of money, but we're, like I said, the power of the human spirit is really moving it forward, and that's an amazing thing to see. And if it resonates, we'd definitely love. And if you know anyone that is interested in perhaps getting behind the next project, send them our way. It would be great.
Can people see the film on the website, selflessmovie.com?
We're currently right in the distribution, talking with Passion River Films. So it will be available online for sure come September. So you'll be able to buy or purchase it, purchase or rent it. And yeah, so everything will be ready for September.
Perfect. Well, it's been wonderful speaking to you. On behalf of Rotary, I'd like to thank Kim Laureen and Megan Dirksen from Selfless Fresh Independence Productions for spending some time with us. We obviously wish you all the best in Beautiful. We're hoping we can be a part of helping promote that message when that film comes out, and hopefully we can do this again for Selfless.
That would be great.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you guys, and thanks for all tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.